Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Jonathan Majors verdict, which really strikes me as very strange. Just to be frank, a lot of people feel like it's a miscarriage of justice, and there's some people who are swayed by some different evidence that's not that they think shows some kind of pattern, things that are out of context and other stuff like that, but things that are all related to that night and the incident of him allegedly assaulting his girlfriend. It just things don't make sense from her perspective. Of course, I wasn't in the courtroom, but there's a lot of puzzling things that I want to talk about. Also, Donald Trump, he called Chip Roy a rhino and is upset with him and wanted to get someone to primary him, but the deadline's already over. And he said some things about Ted Cruz the other night. And but Tucker Carlson said some comments about DeSantis supporters, and I want to talk about that because there's a big narrative, and so I just want to put some things into perspective. I don't know, because I think people are trying to be. There's like a big effort for this sort of narrative that it just doesn't make sense when you compare, side by side the different campaigns as to who's like saying what on the internet, to which person, etc. And also, I found the weirdest darn critique of Bluey. And I've seen Bluey a little bit. It's like the most popular television show there is right now for kids. People talk about Bluey now more than I think Peppa the Pig or whatever. And New York Times thinks this is not a fan, I suppose, because it gives too many unrealistic expectations on fathers being present, the lives of their children being fun and adventurous and cooperative and helpful. And they also mentioned the Chip Chinchillas show that the Daily Wire did too, and they're like, oh, and that's even worse because now they're teaching their kids things that dead white men said, so really bizarre. And it just reminds me of an article I read the other day as well about how children with families who have hugs and get bedtime stories are more advantaged than other kids who don't. So I people, I guess, should feel guilty about it. Just really crazy stuff um about the family. So like it's just an unfair advantage, like they almost wanted to regulate it in a sense because I guess a family like mine is just too advantaged compared to someone who doesn't have doesn't get hugs. So which is sad, but we should just encourage more stability rather than complaining about things that promote stability. It's so weird. We live in such a weird time today. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It does cost a stream, run my website, all that stuff. So if you can support in that way, I do appreciate it. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. So thank you to all those of you who support in that sort of way. Thank you to those of you who watch live and those who watch it back later. Very much appreciated. Check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com, like the shirt, like I'm not the victim you're looking for. We also have mugs and other things on the website you guys can check out. Also, I do have several books you guys can check out. If you go to Black Tea News and go to the merchandise page, there's a banner will take you to my book website, or you can just look for my name on Amazon, Christina L. Barr. I have 17 books that are published. 2 are nonfiction, the rest are fiction, ranging from like children's chapter books to like young and new adult books, contemporary fantasy, action adventure, paranormal romance, all kinds of stuff. And then my two nonfiction books, I have one that's Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. So that's like a faith book. And then I have my book, of course, God is Blatant Against Abortion, which does obviously talk about theology, but also rights and um, politics and all sorts of different stuff that you guys can check out. So anyway, thank you guys for viewing. So I'm not going to spend like an enormous amount of time. Just going to, I guess, run through the story real quick with the Jonathan Majors situation. But he was found guilty of 2 out of 4 counts. And a lot of people are concerned, at least I heard commentary from a lot of lawyers who are looking at Bragg's office, the DA's office, and their desire, it seems, to really want to nail dudes with assaults like these, which I understand. But this, people looking at this particular case, they're like, how the heck can something like this even go to trial? And the DAs and so on, they should be trying to seek justice, not just achieve an end. And there were some other cases that even had acquittals that had details that didn't quite kind of make sense the way that they're pursuing charges. And they got a little bit of a win here. They got 2 not guilty. So assault in the 3rd degree with intent to cause physical injury, not guilty. Assault in the 3rd degree, recklessly causing physical injury, guilty. Aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree, not guilty. Harassment in the 2nd degree, guilty. So he's got 2 not guilties and 2 guilties. So when it comes to like intent of him meaning to do harm to his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, Grace Jarabi, they didn't find that he meant to do that. But running through the story, if you're not familiar, Jonathan Majors was in a car with his girlfriend, who's now his ex. And, she saw that he was getting some texts that were coming in saying, different things. And so she realized that, a text was like, I wish you were kissing me or something right now. So she flips out and she snatches his phone. That's not disputed. She snatches his phone and then he wants the phone back. And so they fight for the phone. And the driver who's driving them had testified and said that she was the aggressor who was attacking him. He was trying to get her phone, but she was attacking him. Jonathan Majors also took photos of scratches that he had on his arm, on his face. He woke up, there was blood stain on his pillow. He took a photo of the blood on the pillow. He took a photo of his torn jacket that he was wearing. So he tells him to stop the car. They stop the car and she like tries to get out on his side where he's at. And he like, sets her down to try to keep her in the car. And she tries to get out. So he like, pushes her down. He doesn't throw her across the car or anything like that, but he tries to keep her down and she won't stay down. And from there, he takes off running. And so there's a video out of him running and I could show it, but he's running and she's chasing after him. So it's kind of like, who's the aggressor here? Which, by the way, he did press charges for her assault and they dropped those charges with her. And then they agreed to not press charges if she would come back and testify in this case against him. So he has documented timestamps of when his like injuries and stuff like it occurred after the fact and whatnot. The driver said that she was the one who was aggressive. She didn't testify that. She said there was a thud. Didn't really say that he like laid hands on her. And she didn't say that he had ever laid hands on her prior to that night. But they're not pursuing anything against her because they wanted to nail him for this situation when there's video footage of her chasing him around town. So it's pretty remarkable. I think when people saw that video, they thought it was pretty much over. So she ends up talking to some strangers that she met on the street and tells them that she caught her boyfriend cheating. She does not tell them that he beat on her or anything. They invite her out to a party. And by the way, the girl, the stranger she met, boyfriend, girlfriend, they didn't say that they saw any sort of markings and stuff on them. Now, if somebody just beat you in the head and a bunch of other stuff, and a big dude like this, Jonathan Majors was in Creed 3, and he was, he's Kang the Conqueror for like the Disney Marvel series. He's supposed to be the villain of the cinematic universe coming up in these phases, and which Disney immediately dropped him after the conviction. Immediately dropped him, even with those intent to harms not being found guilty of those, but they immediately dropped him. So but he's a big dude. If he had really laid hands on her, then I think people would have known. The driver said he didn't find blood in his car. So anyway, she goes out. The strangers invite her to this birthday party. So she goes and she parties with them. Allegedly, a battered woman goes and parties with them. She claimed that she had injury to her finger later, which no one has said that they really noticed at this point in time. But you can see, like, in different surveillance videos, she's using her hand to touch railing and do other sorts of things, drink and swipe his credit card. she paid for drinks with Jonathan Majors' card after all this. And so he didn't go back home. He has a 3 floor like penthouse, and so he decided to go to a hotel to avoid the situation, avoid conflict or whatever. So she tries to get him to come back, and he won't. So he doesn't end up coming back over to the next day when she's sending messages about self-harming and stuff. So he ends up going over there, and he can't get in the house. So he has like a maintenance guy or somebody open up the door. So he's banging on the door and stuff for a while. And so she ends up waking up and texting her friend by the time he's over there, but not inside. And so the police end up finding her a little bit after she texts her friend unconscious, and she's like half naked in the bedroom, and Jonathan Majors had found, like, I think pills and vomit stuff on the bed. And so she's claimed that she was in a lot of pain and took sleeping pills and other stuff like that. And so Jonathan Majors is the one who called the police, called 911, and was like, you said, I believe, she tried to self-harm and stuff. And so the police come over the place. They get to talking to see her. She's a bit distressed, which she broke up the night before or whatever. They, I think, notice a bruise on her finger. And then they end up deciding to arrest him. And then, I remember when he did initially get arrested and the stories came out, it's like, what the heck? And then there were texts from her going to him saying, oh, this is a big misunderstanding. I'm going to tell them that, not to charge you. They told me that they won't charge you. They told me they won't charge you, blah, blah, blah. And of course, all this whole thing escalated. And, I don't know what her original intention of all this was, because again, he's the one who called the police because she thought, I guess he was concerned for her. It all sounds really fishy from her perspective for the things that she told, and there's a lot of surveillance footage and stuff. And her using her allegedly messed up finger, the driver saying that she was the one who aggravated everything. So I don't know how I guess they came to the conclusion that he did harm her, but didn't mean to do it. And I don't know what kind of time he's going to get, especially for like misdemeanor kind of stuff. Um, so many people, different lawyers who've remarked on this case is like, I can't believe like a case about a a dude snatching his phone back from a girl who snatched his phone has gotten all this media attention and even went to trial in the way that it did. It's just really bonkers. If you haven't seen um any of the video of him running, I could play a little bit of that. There was one lawyer who said his counsel basically made a mistake because there is like a penal code where if someone takes your stuff, you can try to get it back, and they didn't really, I guess, use that in their defense. So there's some complaints about Jonathan Majors lawyers and stuff, but the story is just crazy. And I don't know if they desperately just really needed to try to get a conviction, because at this point Jonathan Majors, maybe he still will sue the state for bringing all this down on him. And if he probably still should, especially since, again, he is the villain. He's Kang for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's first premiered in Loki at the end of season 1. He was again in season 2. He was in Ant-Man Quantumanium, which, wasn't, critically acclaimed, but one of his variants was there because there's like time variants of this particular person, and then they showed a bunch of different other variants and stuff. So he's the big bad, like Thanos was the big bad. He's the big bad. But as soon as this conviction came out, Disney immediately dropped him, because people are comparing it to Ezra Miller basically terrorizing Hawaii and still, being the Flash, the movie still coming out, him not getting fired, and them trying to salvage whatever, I guess, money they could with that film, which wasn't very good. I don't I never liked Ezra Miller. I never thought he was good for the role, even in the bit that he was in Justice League for. And I wasn't looking forward to the Flash movie. I did not allow myself to be lured by nostalgia bait with Michael Keaton. I did watch it eventually, and no, it was not a good film, though they really tried to have different people hype it up. I think many people lied about how much they enjoyed it to try to get people to go watch it. There were influencers who were like, "Oh, we should still give it a chance and forgive," because a lot of people worked on the film, etc. It wasn't a good film, but Ezra Miller was a menace to society. People are comparing it to Amber Heard and the Johnny Depp situation, and people like she wasn't fired from her role, though they did, I believe, condense it a lot. So I don't even know if I've seen a trailer with her in it, but that movie looks like it has problems anyway. So Disney has not made a lot of they've lost a lot of money. As of late, the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't going off like the earlier phases has. It's not going as well. And their TV shows aren't as well received. Though people have seemed to really have liked this last season of Loki. But they had some duds. The Captain Marvel film, or the Marvels film rather, did not do well. Ant-Man didn't do well. Guardians, 3 did well. The last Thor movie did not do well. You know, people like really hated it. I don't think it bombed like the other ones did, but people really hated it. So it's not going in a good direction. So I guess they probably feel like they should cut their losses in case this bad kind of press will continue to destroy the film, their films further. There's a lot riding on this particular storyline and this character so that they could, easily, I suppose, recast. But and especially with like different time variants or universal variants or whatever, they've had him all be Jonathan Majors so far, but they could just replace him without even acknowledging that he looks different, really, like they did with they've recasted people in the past before. So I guess they feel like cutting them loose is the best thing for their bottom line. Though I've seen some people very upset saying we need to cancel Disney Plus because they feel like this was a miscarriage of justice and Disney is not standing by the actor fairly. My sister says she was not surprised by the verdict because it is in New York. I've heard people say that too, that if it within that particular district, they were not surprised by the result of the case. Um, I I get it, I guess, but um it's just it's bonkers to me. Um really bonkers to me. Now, there is one clip that I want to play for you guys cuz some people were so convinced, I guess, that he's a bad guy because there's a recording of him complaining about his girlfriend because she came home drunk and he was like, I'm doing things, I need you to be like an elevated woman because I'm like doing important things for my culture, etc. And so people are I don't know, adding this to evidence of him somehow being abusive. And I don't know, I think that expecting your girlfriend to not be a sloppy drunk is not an unreasonable request. So, and I definitely don't think that it equates to uh being abusive. So, I just want to play that so people know what sort of things are in people's minds that are making them come to the conclusion that this man is somehow an abuser.
Period. This is actually, period. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Do you really though, baby? Do you really?
Yes.
Then how dare you come home drunk and disturb the peace of our house when we have a plan? I would like to get to the point where your friends know what job I'm on and go, I think Grace is gonna be out of commission. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I won't.
No. Do you understand that? Because that team, that unit, right? Grace has to be in a certain mindset to support Coretta Scott King. You know who that is? That's Martin Luther King's wife. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama's wife.
I know. I'm not. I shouldn't have gone out. I'm
No,
sorry.
let me just lay it out for you, right? If I'm just gonna say this. My temper, my shit, my trauma, blah, all that said, right? And I'm not saying I'm a great man. A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. That's real. I'm not being a dick about it. I didn't ask for it. I've worked, and that's the situation. The woman that supports me, that I support, that needs to be a great woman and make sacrifices the way that man is making for her and for them ultimately. Last night, 2 nights ago, you did not do that. You did not do that.
I'm sorry.
Which took away from the plan. And the plan is everything. If it was just you in the house drunk, maybe I could have swallowed it. Or I would have felt bold enough like, oh, babe, let's just go to bed. Which I said, I'm just going to go to bed. I'm not hungry, blah, 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 blah. Because Grace isn't here. Why? She was drunk. Why else? She was clogged by whatever was going on. You know what I mean? Fine. I can take that. Fine.
So, when people were like, "Oh, he's the K," like I thought there was a lot of hype no, he's the next big thing or whatever for Disney, but even beyond that, the Creed stuff, like there was a lot of like media hype, like, oh, he's the next big thing coming into fruition. So actors tend to have big heads, but people have been setting it up like he is this person who is the next big thing doing this great thing, and so him believing he's like doing important things for the world is, I think, a lot. But as far as like the culture and other stuff like that, um that's what people have been feeding into his ego. And when you're accomplishing a lot of things, like great things, at least great things in the realm of his particular profession, um you do want, it's not unreasonable to want a good woman by your side who's gonna also support, who's gonna support you and make you look good as well, and have her stuff together. And that's why he compared, her to Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama. Now, there's a lot of commentary with folks, and all they pretty much have to say is, this is why you don't date white women, and just learn to pick your girls better, and etc. Blah blah blah. And I think there's I don't know, there's more to with this case than that. That goes without being said, that you need to pick good partners and all that kind of stuff. But um and perhaps his error when he tried to keep her in the car or whatever, I don't know, but it did really seem like he was doing his darndest to de-escalate the situation. He got out the car. He did try to keep her in the car, but I guess maybe he shouldn't have done that, I guess. And he literally ran away from her. Literally ran away from her. When she was chasing him and stuff. And he even like walked by when she was talking to the two strangers on the street, and she tried to even talk to him then. If he had like beaten the crap out of her in the car, which the driver said did not happen or whatever, why is she still trying to get back with him at that point and plead with him or whatever? She was not afraid of him at that point. And the strangers, the guy who was on the street kind of looked like he was going to do something, and his girlfriend like pulled him aside, is like, bro, you weren't about to do nothing to Kang the Conqueror. Who's in Creed 3. But just none of this really makes sense at all. Let me Here's a car situation. So I'm just gonna speed it up to like a little bit. So there's them like try to get him keep her in the car, tracing after. Then he goes. There he goes. There she goes, chasing him, chasing him. And the defense like had like a map of so you can see all where she had followed him. Yeah. This is crazy to me. When my sister first like drew to my attention the video, she's like, what did you think? I'm like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. But it's just a hot mess. But now it's sad, I think, because this conviction doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But they really wanted to get him. But I don't know, maybe he will do some kind of civil suit, maybe perhaps against her. But there's more to be gained if he goes after the city of New York, because he's definitely has a lot to lose with the situation here. Someone said the way they just laughed. Yeah, it's a remarkable situation. Yeah, look at her pleading with him, baby, please. Just a wild situation. She goes again. And so again, he went to a hotel, did not go home, and kind of seemed like she, I don't know, lured him back with her emotional pleas, like she was going to do something. Um her, and again, her friend, she was sending text to her friend not too long after the police came and found her unconscious. They found her unconscious. Um this is a wild story. And to those of you who don't follow like the pop culture stuff too much, um again, Alvin Bragg, there's been some cases where it seemed like they have a political agenda and a desire to achieve an outcome rather than seeking justice. And there's been other cases different than this one, but still some shady stuff and questionable things with Bragg. Alvin Bragg did also bring a case against Trump. He's had 4 indictments. The Bragg one is the one where most people were like, that is just straight up political agenda right there. Now I don't know how many people who dislike Trump really care of that Bragg is was like the first to go after him with a indictment that didn't make a lot of sense. But to be frank, even though most people think it's garbage, I think where he's being tried might still lead to some issues for Trump as well. And our justice system shouldn't operate like that. We should all feel like no matter where you are in the country that you're going to get a fair shot. But unfortunately, we don't feel like that. And I think to the people who kind of feel like this is what Jason gets, or just shrugs it off like that's what happens when you deal with white women or whatever. It's really not fair. It's really not fair. I mean, dudes need to pick good women anyway, just in general. But it seemed like he tried to de-escalate de-escalate the situation. Now there is you may hear some people talk about a set of texts from a different incident that makes it sound like there's a big pattern of abuse from him. So there was some out of context text that we don't know the full context for. This is an article, and this is how like different magazines have written about a U.S. magazine. Jonathan Majors sent disturbing text to ex Grace Jabari. Trial evidence reveals Jonathan Major threatened to unalive himself during a September 2022 text exchange with then girlfriend Grace Jabari. According to new evidence from his ongoing assault trial, several text messages and one audio recording, all from September 2022, have been made public to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office after being shown in court last week per Variety. In one text message, Majors 34 wrote, "I will probably unalive myself." He didn't say unalive, but trying to not get censored or dinged, I guess. Rather, I am censoring myself, but it's not really contemplating anymore. I'm a monster, a horrible man, not capable of love. I am offing myself soon. I've already put things in motion. The threat of self-harm came after Majors claimed that Jabari 30 hadn't shown him love that morning. "I gave you love last night and this morning before I got out of bed. When you got up, you were not full of love at all. I didn't feel it at all. You could have just given me a hug or walked close to me or asked me if you could give me a hug, not the other way around. It works both ways," Major wrote. And she responded by pleading with him not to harm himself. "Jonathan, you can't say this. I'm going to have to call someone," she wrote before apologizing for not hugging you this morning and reminding Majors he's a 9-year-old daughter. Ella Majors' trial kicked off late last month. After several delays, the actor was arrested in March for allegedly assaulting a woman later identified as Jabari. 3 days later, he was arraigned and charged with assault and harassment. Majors denied the allegations at the time and has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. In another message shared in court last week, Majors seemingly dissuaded Jabari from seeking medical treatment after she suffered an injury to her head. "I fear you have no perspective of what could happen if you go to the hospital, Majors wrote. They will ask you questions, and as I don't think you will actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation, even if you do lie and they suspect something. Jabari wrote, I will tell a doctor I bumped my head. If I go, I'm going to give it one more day, but I can't sleep and need some stronger painkillers. That is all. Why would I want to tell them what really happened when it's clear I want to be with you? So, and then the other thing they mentioned is the message that I already played for you guys, with the I'm a great man. Now, in whatever this head situation is going on, we don't know the context of that, but we do know that she claimed that he never put his hands on her prior to that, the incident or whatever in the car. So if that's what she says, then it's reasonable to expect whatever happened here wasn't him, like, I don't know, knocking her head or whatever. We don't know what's the context of these. We know what she said in court. So but as far as like what we know, how the events played out, what the what the driver said, and the surveillance footage and the witnesses and all that stuff, it just doesn't look like he something that should have even gone to trial. It's just mess between couples. Perhaps they're both toxic and shouldn't be together, obviously. And it spilled out in the public like this. Some people said if he was just a Joe Schmo, we wouldn't all be having this conversation. But if this was still happening to a Joe Schmo and we were unaware of someone having like this miscarriage of justice, that would still be a bad thing. So I wonder what will ultimately happen to Bragg's office, and if he will, if things like this will help to propel his career, or if people will wake up and have their eyes open and say, I don't think you're seeking justice. I think you're seeking fame. And this was a big head, on your mantle. Again, there was evidence of like scratch marks and bloody marks or whatever on Jonathan Major. And they dropped the charges against his girl to get her to testify against him. So they really, 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 really wanted him. They really wanted to skin him. So they couldn't get him on things that were like really with intent. So we're not going to know what he's sentenced to until February. So perhaps he'll get probation and a fine. Perhaps I don't know if he can get jail time or whatever for any of this, but that would be a shame. But it's a crazy story to me. Anyway, moving on. I wanted to share this video with Tucker Carlson talking about Trump supporters. He was I think this is at AmFest. He's talking to I think Charlie Kirk and Tim Pool about the race, and he brought up DeSantis supporters, which he admits he's not online a lot, but this, I guess, is his perception of DeSantis supporters.
So on the internet, and like I'm not that much, you really get the sense that Ron DeSantis, who I liked as governor, the people who represent him online are the nastiest, the stupidest, and the most zero-sum people I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think that reflects him, but it's like, this is kind of small ball. And by the way, these purported conservatives, Ron DeSantis changed his view, and I like him, okay? I think he's been a good governor. I just want to be clear about that. I know him personally, I like him. But his donor, Ken Griffin, told him to change his view on Ukraine from it's a regional conflict we shouldn't get involved in to it's a super important thing, we should send more money. One donor got him to change his view, and all these so-called conservatives are supporting that like it's the most important thing ever. Like, who are these people and what is their problem? Like, what is going on with them?
It does reflect on Ron, because Ron should have fired the people running his campaign a long time ago. Look, I respect that he wanted to launch his campaign on X, on Twitter Spaces at the time, and it failed miserably. This is a mistake. And now you've got, look, I know a lot of people groan, but a lot of people laugh. The high heels, boots scandal. I mean, who's giving this guy advice and why does he keep taking it? Because I will say it politically and policy-wise, we love Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
He's done an amazing job.
I agree.
But his campaign is a train wreck.
Yeah.
So, that's the commentary, and it's common commentary that I see from, like, I don't know, people who are like solely on the Trump train and stuff. And they'll say like, "Oh, I like Ron DeSantis, but his fans are making me not like him." And I find that so weird. I think the person should be what drives you to vote for them or not, though you can be annoyed by the supporters. Definitely. But to the Ukraine thing, I don't know what Tucker's talking about, because I don't think he's really I think he's kind of cleaned up his position a bit. But from my understanding, I don't think Ken Griffin he gave to his governor reelection, but I don't think he's given to his I don't think he's a big donor for like his presidential race. So there's been lots of instances where, I guess maybe not lots, but a couple of instances where donors wanted DeSantis to act a particular way, and he acted on his convictions instead. So I think there's evidence to suggest that Ron will do what Ron wants to do rather than Ron does what the donor class tells him to. So on that point, I think Tucker's just wrong. But as far as him, since he's not chronically online, like I'm chronically online, I don't know how Tucker gets that impression, other than he knows that's what people in his circle who like him a lot say. So perhaps it's worth repeating so he could get I don't know, the seal clap of approval. Because I've seen Tim Pool and other people say things along those lines, and I've been upset though at some decisions from the DeSantis team, and thought like heads should have rolled for like certain things. Like I was really annoyed by that video. It was like an anti-gay video. It was too much. I thought it politically that was a bad move or whatever. And I'm like, man, whoever decided this is just dumb and doesn't need to be making decisions. So there was definitely a time or two I'm like, what are you guys doing? But the he's running the worst campaign and stuff ever. I think that's mostly a narrative. There's mistakes that they've made, but there's definitely lots of things like I could point to Trump's campaign not doing well. You could say, well, he's up in the polls. Yeah, because he's practically an incumbent and he has like 100% name ID, and people liked what he did, even though they may not be too fond of him himself. And a lot of people buy into he's being persecuted, so people feel stronger about wanting to protect him. So there's like this visceral sort of, I don't know, mama bear kind of reaction when people come for Trump, that people feel like they have to double down and protect him more. So there's a lot of emotional responses connected to Trump. So, but does that mean that he's been running a great campaign? No. And by the way, he didn't run a great one in 2016, nor did he was his campaign exceptional in 2020 either. So it's just not he really benefits from being very, very famous, and people having a long association with him, and people feeling like they really know him, even if they've never met him, because they've seen him on TV, they followed his interviews for a long time, etc., etc., etc. As far as like the comment about they're the dumbest, the nastiest people, I don't know what that kind of impression is. I've been on some I've been on X, aka Twitter, during some lives, or they call them spaces, and have heard DeSantis v. Trump people go at it. And if as to who makes a better argument, from every time I've heard discussions, I gotta say it's usually the DeSantis people who make a better argument. I'm not saying that Trump people are dumb. That's not what I'm saying. But one time I was on though, and somebody was a Trump supporter, and they were like, all of you people who switch from Trump, you have no conviction. And like, what do you mean we have no conviction? They're like, and this one guy was like, man, I want to, take care of my kids and all this other stuff. And he just went down a list of reasons like why he logically made the switch. And other people made the argument of why they logically made the switch. And then he just said, you have no conviction because they did make a switch. And then they're like, we need retribution. Like that was his reason for supporting Trump, because he wants, I don't know, to stick it to the people who don't like him, stick it to the deep state, stick it to the prosecutors, stick it to just everything, I guess. And one of the people who was for Ron DeSantis was like, I got kids, I don't have time for retribution. Like I'm thinking about my bills, I'm thinking about the economy, I'm thinking about all these things, and they're concerned about the court cases and all this other kind of stuff, and Trump surrendering to Fauci, and just they had a ton of explanations and could explain very elegantly why they made the switch. And then but the Trump responses were just very visceral and emotional with based on revenge or something. So that's not a great motivating factor when your most important thing in your life is the future for your kids. And this was around a time, this was some months back, like when Trump, was getting his mugshot, and contrast with the mugshot with DeSantis being in the Field of Dreams, playing baseball with his kids. So the whole they're dumb, etc., blah, blah, blah. I just don't see people making dumb arguments for why they support DeSantis. So that's a really degrading and I think dishonest critique. As far as it being nasty, there's definitely nasty people on both sides. But as far as like the nastiness, you could just look at the Trump campaign itself. As far as like nastiness, like Ron will talk about like policies or things that Trump did or things that he did, or contrast what did he do, compare the records. You can believe that it's an honest evaluation or not, but it's like focused on those sorts of things. Trump has retweeted Laura Loomer saying that DeSantis is on the spectrum. Laura Loomer, who Trump praises very much, and she's very much a part of their campaign and stuff, accused DeSantis's wife of like faking her cancer or exaggerating her cancer. That's pretty awful. There was Roger Stone who called Casey DeSantis the C word. He used the abbreviation with this see you next, day of the week. So hopefully you guys get it. I'm not explaining more than that, but he said that to her. Donald Trump Jr. Said that DeSantis was transitioning because he was wearing his cowboy boots and was calling him Rhonda. And that was also when he was out like on the Field of Dreams with his kids and stuff. People are just like, those are cowboy boots. Like, you're really coming for cowboy boots. I don't like Ron's boots, by the way. I don't. They're not my favorite thing. But Trump accused DeSantis of being a groomer. So he also accused him of supporting slavery and made a bingo card out of it. Beyond DeSantis, his campaign sent a bird cage with a bird to Nikki Haley's hotel in Iowa, I think they were at, and because he keeps calling her bird brain. So, and some people are like, that's not true. That doesn't look like, that wasn't really the Trump campaign who did. No, they did it. They took credit for it and stuff. So, there's that. Trump has said a lot of comments about basically everyone who's been in his administration, who's no longer like, uplifting him and stuff. So if you want to talk, and Trump was saying negative things about DeSantis before DeSantis officially announced in the midst of like his reelection in the midterm. And I wasn't a fan of that. I was upset of that because I'm like, if you're like the head of the Republican Party, isn't your objective goal to like see Republican victories so we can achieve agendas that and have mandates for those agendas and the power to enact those agendas because we have the majority? And it seemed like at that point he didn't want him to do well, and there are other people that he was kind of talking about, and he was glad that certain people failed because they didn't kiss his butt enough. So I didn't like his behavior during the midterm, you know. So if you're going to talk about people who are nasty, you don't have to go to the accolades or whatever. You could just go to the candidates themselves, and by a long shot, Trump is way nastier and his campaign is way nastier. And the paid influencers or whatnot. There was one guy who has let me find his name. I'm not gonna play his video. I thought about it, but it has way too much swearing in it. But Warlord Dilly, he's a Trump influencer guy. He has a rant where he just goes on and on about Casey DeSantis calling her the B word and talking about her kids and all kind of stuff and saying she's free rank, she's part of his campaign, and DeSantis should have told her to stay home and just take care of the kids and et cetera, and just really, really unnecessarily degrading stuff. So Tucker's assessment on the situation is bonkers to me. And if Tim Pool is going to make the case that these influencers who are so nasty are a reflection on DeSantis because there's people he hasn't fired, and I think a lot of people that they're probably talking about aren't on a payroll. At least I don't think there's evidence of that. Then what about the people within Trump's circle who are being praised by him, elevated by him, and related to him? People who are consultants, and that should be a poor reflection on him. So if one group is going to make you not vote for somebody, I don't understand how it's rando DeSantis influencers online. It just, you're going to have to help me get to a point where that makes any kind of sense. You're gonna have me. So, but people are also talking about Tucker and coming at Tucker, finding old videos of him talking about Bill O'Reilly and how, you know, he had a shtick and he wasn't legit, and they're like, that this basically is who Tucker is now, what he's saying about Bill O'Reilly, and he's just putting on an act. And so people were in retaliation going for digs at Tucker, and like somebody who is a DeSantis supporter posted the video of Jon Stewart going at Tucker while they were on Crossfire, which I had heard that he had like demolished Tucker, but I had never seen the clip until last night. I don't think that was the case, because I don't think he even made the case why Crossfire was terrible. Like, he said it was bad for the country, but he didn't really explain why. He did make digs at Tucker and his bow tie and other stuff like that, but as far as like an ideological like takedown, and it really didn't happen, at least from what I saw. But people have been pointing out that Tucker in private has wrote different text on how he despised Trump, and he couldn't wait until he was no longer a thing and they didn't have to talk about him and certain damage that he was doing to the nation and whatnot. So that's what he was saying before, and now he's like, oh, I'm totally like, you know, Trump, especially when they came after him and tried to indict him, etc., etc. And so I don't know. I think there's some questions that I have about Tucker. I thought it was weird when he interviewed Trump and he didn't really press him about like his response with COVID and other stuff like that. Things that he talks about, like he talked about DeSantis and his Ukraine response. Trump said that if they didn't come together with peace in like 24 hours, he was going to just arm Ukraine to the teeth. And that's not what Tucker and other folks want. So the extreme criticism for DeSantis and not for Trump doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially because Trump has a lot of other negatives, like, he's up there in age and has high unfavorables. People love him, but people also despise him. So I Tucker's talked about privately how there are things that Trump didn't do, how he didn't meet his like key promises. So but when he's on X and is talking to Trump supporters and stuff, it's kind of a different story. So perhaps a lot of it is performative. um I've been a lot I've been bummed about a lot of people who I've like followed online, to just, I don't know, be so to curb their, it feels like so many people are kind of curbing their commentary to achieve a particular end, and aren't being as forthright as they could be. Like, I thought it was weird when Tucker interviewed Andrew Tate and didn't really push back on him. I'm like, where's your journalistic curiosity that you know like I used to DVR Tucker if I missed it. Like when he first had his show, I was so excited, and I met him at the inauguration. I actually saw him again not too long ago when he came to Michigan, and but I was like so into Tucker at the time, and I DVR his stuff. Eventually, the shtick kind of got a little old. Like, you invite a leftist on your show, and then you just make him look stupid and make the Tucker face, and I don't know. Eventually, it just became like, okay, I've kind of had enough with the comedy routine sort of thing. So but when he had Obama's alleged lover who allegedly did drugs with him on, I did notice, and I did like a lot of research in response to like what happened back in the day with his responses and Tucker's interview and stuff to prepare for my response for Tucker. And Tucker mentioned that he even had a lie detector test, but he like omitted the fact that he didn't pass the lie detector test. Now, the lie detector tests aren't always accurate, but if you're going to mention it to lend credibility to the person that you're interviewing, and he basically didn't question his account, he basically just gave him platform to speak his mind and ask questions like, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that happened." Oh, he didn't really question his account, and it I don't to not mention the fact that he didn't pass the lie detector test, at least so his audience could weigh that with the rest of the interview. I don't know. It concerned me a little bit. I'm like, is this just for entertainment, or are you trying to inform the audience? Is this just the asking questions bit, or are we trying to or throw it out there and let the audience decide, or are we trying to seek a truth together? So I don't know. I thought his criticism was really out there and unfair, but I do think that is the narrative that a lot of people want. Like, oh, DeSantis is he's just squandered all this potential, and all of his supporters are just terrible and dumb and evil, and they're making him look. He's great. Yeah, he's great because you like all the stuff that he did, and you can't bash on his record. So you have to bash on the people who like him. And there's annoying people in every camp, I absolutely guarantee you. But for people who are like, DeSantis's people, they're so awful, that's why I'm voting for Trump, that doesn't pass a sniff test to me. If you want a reason to vote for Trump, do you need one? I mean, if you liked what he did and you feel like he's owed another shot, shouldn't that be reason enough? You don't have to go the whole like, I saw a meme online. It made me, from the DeSantis person, it made me hate them. Like, it's not that deep. If you like the guy, just vote for him. If that's how you feel, like, it's not that deep. You don't need to have some kind of elaborate story that doesn't emotionally and logically make sense. Last thing I want to mention about this Trump situation before I go on, and I suppose go over time, is that he also talked about Chip Roy, and he also talked about Ted Cruz. And it was funny because I think I don't know if it was earlier this week or late last week, he had put out a tweet saying, "Oh, Democrats prepared to spend a lot of money in Texas and in Josh Hawley's seat and stuff, and also in Josh Hawley's seat and in Ted Cruz's seat and stuff. Oh, this is like unheard of? Oh, that's interesting." And so people were interpreting that as, is he trying to just put it out there that they better endorse him or he's gonna start coming at them? Because in the case of Ted Cruz, they totally tried to, it's not unheard of that they would try to spend a lot of money in Texas. That's what they've been doing because they think that they can flip Texas, and the day that they do flip Texas, it's just kind of be over for us, to be frank. So that's where Beto O'Rourke had his meteoric rise, when he was going up against Ted Cruz, and then he ran for president, and then he ran for governor. But he's maybe they'll try to run him again. Who knows? So they're definitely going to put a lot of money into trying to unseat Ted Cruz, and perhaps he's more vulnerable than an average Republican, especially if Trump wants to throw him over the bus for not endorsing or whatever. So Josh Hawley did ended up endorsing Trump, and I suppose Ted hasn't yet. I'd be surprised if he didn't endorse Trump. I guess I totally wouldn't be. I don't know. Because he well, of course, ran against him in 16. I think he would be more ideologically aligned with DeSantis, because Trump is kind of running on the left on on many positions. But Trump is a hard one to cross. But at the same time, at the convention, Republican convention, if you guys recall back in 2016, when Ted Cruz got up and said, "Vote your conscience," I was so mad when he did. I was so annoyed with that. But then he turned around and got on board online, was, go out there and vote for Trump. And that was after Trump talked about how his wife looked. So if you're willing to bend over, after and kiss the ring after someone talks about how your wife looks, I don't know what to do with you. So I have no idea how this Ted Cruz situation is going to pan out. If he will or he won't endorse. But let me just at least share this tweet. He didn't talk about him until like the very end of this tweet. He talked about the Never Back Down pack, and the Ron DeSanctimonious team of misfits and grifters has largely quit his campaign to go on to greener pastures. It has been a terrible experience for them, as they have watched their candidate fall violently from the sky like a wounded bird. Jeff Rowe, his chief strategist and head of his pack, always back down after having done major surgery on Ron's wallet. That's pretty funny. He can be a jerk, but he's still funny. Now Jeff can spend full time in Texas working with Ted Cruz, formerly known as Lion Ted, who is working hard to get back the magic they had together in 2016. So he's preparing to come for Ted. I don't know if I've heard that he's been trying to pressure different senators and stuff to go ahead and just fully endorse him before the Iowa caucus. So I don't know. I suppose there's truth to that. And here's what he said about Chip Roy. Has any smart and energetic Republican in the great state of Texas decided to run in the primary against Rhino Congressman Chip Roy? For the right person, he is very beatable. If interested, let me know. Now, Chip Roy, very conservative. I've heard some people in Texas say there's some things that they didn't like with that about Chip Roy and some things that he did. And so I get it. I understand. However, here, the deadline has passed. It is so but we know the reason why he's coming for Chip Roy is because Chip Roy is firmly and has been firmly in the DeSantis camp. So it's too late to do the primary bit. But I suppose that probably won't stop Trump from attacking Chip Roy. And again, as a leader of the perceived leader as a Republican Party, we should be like trying to seek victories and not just get vendettas, uh, but hopefully get some agendas passed. Just because someone doesn't endorse you doesn't mean that they don't support an agenda that you would want to get forward, to push forward. So you don't have to try to knock them out or take joy in them being knocked out or anything like that. So his goal should be at this point to see Chip Roy get a victory. Because it's past the time for him to find a candidate just to screw him over. Deadline is passed. So I don't know. I still by all sort of conventional wisdom, it looks like Trump is going to be the nominee, though, I'm going to wait to proclaim things until he's actually votes have been cast. But in the meantime, I do still want better behavior from Trump, and I don't think that is too hard of an ask at all. I don't think it's too hard of an ask. Last thing I want to mention to you guys today is this bizarre article from the New York Times on the TV show Bluey, and they also mentioned the Chinchilla show. Jeremy Boring had retweeted this and talked about it. And I don't know if I'll go through the whole article because the hour is late. Not too late, but we're over. But the gist of the article is that the New York Times is concerned or amazed or whatever because there's a very present father figure in these shows, and the fantasy of the fun TV dad, that they're present, that they're fun, that they're adventurous, and that's so different than like the Disney, what they've been raised on, like Little Mermaid and the absent mother, therefore the father is like kind of tyrannical, which Ariel's dad was just trying to look out for her. Her mom was like killed by surface people in some kind of accident, I think. And humans eat fish. We're just kind of natural enemies, I think. So they eat fish too, but it's different. They all live down there. This is kind of an environment. So him being concerned, she was a rebellious 16-year-old. He was making a lot of sense. I think the worst thing, I'm sorry to get my Little Mermaid rant. I think the worst thing that Poseidon did was sacrificing himself for Ariel because he had a kingdom to run and other daughters. So he should have just flat out tried to murder Ursula. And don't tell me wouldn't have worked, because that's precisely what Eric did. That's precisely what her fiance did to get them out of that situation. Maybe it would have worked, maybe it wouldn't have worked. I don't know. Or he could have tried to find another way, but him making a deal with her in that rush decision and her getting the trident and becoming the Lord of the Seas temporarily, whenever, huge mistake. But him being protective of her and not wanting her to be in love with a human she saw 2 seconds ago, I don't think it was terribly unreasonable, even in the moment where he was upset. I don't think, I'm not saying you should go around and smash your kids' stuff. I also don't know if her but she did have unhealthy, strange obsessions. So anyway. Jeremy Boring said there are 2 kinds of shows, 2 kids shows that stand out to the New York Times as problematic: Bent Keys, Chip, Chinchilla, and Bluey. And what's so problematic? Weirdly present fathers. And he's not mischaracterizing it. That's their issue with Bluey. Both fathers are derided as a fantasy for being so active and engaged with their children, but according to the New York Times, Chip Chinchilla is far more offensive of the 2, because Chum Chum teaches lessons about dead white people, read George Washington, Ben Franklin, Neil Armstrong, etc., and leads his kids to fun games and lessons as a way of establishing male authority. Chip Chinchilla is the most popular show on our new BentKey platform, and Bluey is the most popular children's show, period. It's no coincidence that two shows that feature loving and engaged nuclear families with great values who actually enjoy being together are so popular. And it's no coincidence that the cultural gatekeepers at the New York Times have them both in their crosshairs. The left not only wants to add its radical agenda to kids' entertainment, they want to remove good values from kids' entertainment. Our culture has fallen so far at times, it might seem hopeless. BentKey isn't anywhere near the level of size and influence of the New York Times and Disney's of the world, but we created it because we have hope and believe our best days are ahead of us, and that the only way we can take back the culture from the left is by building something better. So, yeah, they just think that the parents are unrealistic because, or at least rather the dads are unrealistic because they're too present in their children's lives. They describe Bluey as still a more progressive example, I guess, because he does a lot of things, hangs out with his kids, plays games with them, has a job, and he helps with laundry too. So I guess that's what makes him more progressive. According, I don't know, in the Chip Chinchilla, they're more traditional or whatever. So the kids are homeschooled, and the dad is their teacher and teaches them all these lessons, etc. So I don't know why it's so offensive that there are dead white men to learn from. Not only dead white men, but there's a lot of smart dead white men out there, especially within our nation's history and stuff. So you just kind of gotta get over it at some point, not just be like hyper racist to all things. So there's that. But to me, it's concerning that people feel so strongly about this that they felt the need to even write this article. There are dads that are present in their kids' lives, and to say that it's a fantasy is concerning and offensive, I think. My dad, I'm not saying it was like Bluey every day or something like that, but my dad did like to hang out with us. My dad liked to watch was really into, X-Men, Marvel sort of superhero shows or whatever. Our Saturday morning cartoons were largely his Saturday morning cartoons, not all of them or whatever. He didn't like Pokemon or whatever, but we were watching Batman Beyond stuff like that. We come home Friday nights and watch Star Trek together. We would he liked taking us to the movies. He liked taking us on different trips. We traveled a lot doing ministry stuff together, but he would always be teaching us some kind of historical fact that he knew. He liked to learn. He liked to share. My dad was the kind of guy who'd read like multiple newspapers from around the world. He liked to share his knowledge, and he wanted his children to be wise, and he would share their knowledge with them. And in one of the Daily Wire people, they said that the father passing on knowledge is a feeling or desire that they all have to pass on knowledge to their kids. So it's really not so strange. My dad, especially when he was younger, he liked to do more physical things with us. Like I have this memory of us playing basketball together, and I made the winning shot. My dad turning to me like, "You just won the game." And him being happy and etc. So I mean, I have memories like that in my mind, and a lot of time spent though we were playing video games. And the older he got, the more of a homebody was. Were there moments that they stuck us in front of TVs or told us just to go outside and play with each other? Sure, but I'm sure I know my parents wanted alone time for reasons. So there was a lot of us sometimes like, go outside. And we're like, we don't want to go outside. You got to go outside, So you got to make time when you can get it, I guess. But they largely did find time to, for us, We always spent a lot of time together. And then the benefit of having a lot of kids, they always felt like you are each other's friends. Not saying we didn't have other friends outside of each other, but you're self-sufficient in your own kind of community in your stable, intact nuclear family. So kind of reminds me of one time when I used to work at Micro Center. I was in the break room and overheard people talking about the Cosbys, and they were talking about how they didn't like the Cosbys because they thought it was like too unrealistic um, with the family dynamics and the professional family and how they just kind of all got along and other stuff like that. And um, my parents weren't both working, and that one wasn't a doctor and wasn't uh, gosh, what did Mrs. Huxtable do? I can't remember, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad is a pastor, or was a pastor. My brother's a pastor of a church now, but we had a very happy, stable family environment. So it would just really alarmed me the amount of people who were just like, "Yep, Cosby's is too unrealistic." Uh, it was just very strange to me, very strange. Um, and not all of us got the same kind of equal time, with like my dad, for example, because my dad would travel a lot with the older siblings and the rest would stay home. But my mom would try to, when we left, she made, like, I don't know, would make a special dish or something, and she would find a way, to have some kind of different fun or whatever, so they'd feel like they were being left out. So I don't know what's wrong with these people. And then they even like complain about the dads doing so much because they feel like the moms are just background characters, and like the dads are so adventurous, but the moms you can't be adventurous with, which moms can. I've only seen Bluey a little bit from watching my nieces and nephews observe it. And I haven't seen the Chinchilla Show on Bentkey. I haven't seen that yet. So I can't speak to that, but I'd assume their moms get involved in the show and aren't essentially just, background wallpaper or something. I assume they're involved in the plots. But many moms may like to play with their kids and will play with their kids and stuff, but kids do seek different things from their parents. When the kids, want nurturing and hugs and warmth and comfort and whatever, they want their mom. When they want adventure, they do go to their dad. I'm not saying that's like in every sort of case, but that is like, moms and dads are different, male and female are different, but there's a reason why every child has a mom and a dad. And you could say, well, that's traditional outdated sort of thinking. No, it's written in our DNA. It's the only way we come into existence, with a mother and a father. There are things that can happen that make that not a reality to where we have a intact family living with that particular situation. But that's the way we are genetically hardwired. And I think it's for particular reasons. I do dare say designed. Anyway, there's a noise in the background. I have no idea what that was. This reminds me again of an article I read the other day of these psychiatrists or who were observing behavior, and they were complaining about these sort of advantages that kids have if their families read them bedtime stories and give them hugs and all sorts of different things. And they were talking about what can you do to get rid of those disadvantages. And they're like, well, I guess it wouldn't be ethical to say kids can't go to private school, and they say that you can't read them bedtime stories. Yeah, it wouldn't be ethical to restrict a family like that. But promoting families being together and having things like, Bluey, that hopefully, I don't know, even if someone doesn't grow up in a nuclear intact family like that perhaps they'll crave that and want that, and will grow up with that desire and try to give that to their kids, because that, for stability or whatnot. It is sad when there's kids who don't have hugs and stuff. My mom was, my mom's love language is like acts of service. She's not like a she's more like a Vulcan, I guess. So my dad is a big hugger. My dad is a one who, wants to kiss you and all that kind of stuff, and is the one who's quicker to cry, though he's very, very, very masculine and stuff. But we still when my dad tells a story when he was on a roller coaster with my brother, and my brother's flipping out, and he's screaming for his mom, and he's just like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, he's right next to him. There's just an instinct to want your mom. And so again, I think moms and dads are different, and they're complementary, and even though they don't play the same role, I guess, in this series either, the fact that you have strong, loving dads in these series is a good thing. And it is so weird to just call it the fantasy. If you do think it's a fantasy, I think it's really sad, and that's something that we need to get our world back to. If you think it's so out of the ordinary, but it's not out of the ordinary to have present fathers who love their kids, who care about their kids, and etc. So I'm very grateful to my parents, who aren't, perfect. No one has a perfect parent, but we're not perfect children. So it kind of evens out. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, you can support on the website at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a streaming room, a website, all that stuff. So thank you to those of you who have supported, those of you who can and will in the future. Appreciate it. Check out different merch that we have, like Black Tea Mug here. And we got different teas you guys can check out and get. Also, I do have lots of books myself with some strong family figures in it and stuff. So you guys can check out Super Kid. The great thing about Super Kid though is his mom is pretty I guess they're both kind of pretty traditional, and his dad has an old school kind of way of thinking, but it's evident in the story that he it's revealed eventually that he didn't grow up with a father, so he's kind of just really trying to figure things out. And his son, he reveals to his son that he's trying to figure things out, and they kind of his dad, Felix, the main character, thinks he's kind of a big scary figure, but they end up coming to an understanding of them trying to figure out their way through life together. So it's a really loving and interesting dynamic with the family. But Super Kid is about a kid who has overactive imagination. He thinks he has powers. He doesn't really. And he teams up with his friends. One, Kiara, who thinks who knows it's not true, but she has a crush on him. So she goes along with it. So she becomes Princess Lady Diva. So they help with this other kid in his neighborhood named Lee. And so he thinks it's real. So they train him and he becomes Stick Man. So they just go around the community doing good and stuff. So I'm inspired by some stories about my dad. And so I was like, oh, let me take some of that stuff, appropriate it, and make it into a story. So that's how Super Kid came to be. And then there's a sequel, Super Kid, too. So go ahead and check that out on my books. Again, you can just search my name, Christina Elbar, on Amazon and find my stuff. Or if you go to Black Tea News and go to the merchandise page, there's a banner that'll take you to my book site where you can learn more about my works. I have 17 that are published, 2 are nonfiction, the rest are fiction. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me for this long episode of Black Tea News, which I guess hour and a half is becoming more and more common. But it was just an interesting news day. I was like, oh, okay, I got to talk about this Jonathan Majors situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about this Tucker Carlson Trump stuff. And it was like, and then I saw this Bluey stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about the Bluey stuff. And I thought about waiting till tomorrow, but I'm like, but what if there's all these interesting things that happen tomorrow? So I decided to cram it all in, and I hope it was worth your time. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.